y'all. Let me see if I can get this. It's always a little bit different before you start recording than it is once you hit the record button. It gets a little narrower. There we go, I think. Okay, good morning. This is the buffet that's going to be our April $10 class. And I've shown this before whenever I picked it up because I bought 2 buffets that day. I'm going to get my tablet ready. That way if there's comments I can see them, because I won't be able to be by the camera and by the comments at the same time. But I kind of wanted to talk about prepping to prep. If we talk, there it is. Got a new tablet, so I gotta turn the volume down. There we go. Now we're ready. But you know, I've talked before about prep work and how important I think prep work is. Let me get up here for a minute. And how important that I think the prep work is. But it's sometimes trying to decide what prep work needs to be done. And hey, Regina. And a lot of times, with the chalky style paints, they're like, oh, you know, prep work needed. Just go straight to your piece. You don't need to do prep work. And sometimes that's the truth, and sometimes that's a big pile of malarkey, which in this instance is a big pile of malarkey. And I almost made a mistake of my own this morning, something I swear I wouldn't do because I was wanting to cut a step, and I'm going to discuss that with y'all. Right now, this thing is just piled up with everything that I'm thinking about using. And except for 2 things are missing, and I'm aggravated about that with myself. But anyway, there's people who do their projects like by going by the seat of their pants and having to run off every minute and go get this and go get that. And that drives me crazy. There's the people who, the pantsers, that's called, just by the seat of their pants. They got a buffet and they're going to paint it and sit down and start and get up and go and come back. Then there's people who are planners and who plan out everything to every detail, have it organized and ready. And there's people like me who are somewhere in between. I like to have all of my supplies and everything ready, because that's the thing about paint, and especially with this chalky style paint, is you can't put on a coat that maybe you're going to wet distress or something like that later, and then take off and go looking for your next color and come back and have it be ready, because it's going to be partially dry by that time, and your window of doing the creative thing, say a blending technique or something that you wanted to do, is going to be closed. So the one thing that we for sure always have to do, no matter what prep work, is cleaning the piece. And this came from, you know, a nice home here locally. We went and picked it up. But yeah, I think it had been in their garage. So we definitely, even if it hadn't, it's liable to have had, you know, coats of pledge or furniture polish or something on it that need to come off before we start painting. You can use Dixie Belle's White Lightning, which is nearly the same thing as this, or this TSP, which is what I'm going to use. And I'm just going to mix a little bit. I've got my container here. And when I start my prep work in a minute, I'm going to mix warm water in there and about a tablespoon of the TSP. Put a glove on, and I got some sponges from the dollar store and a little light scrubby pad that I'm going to use. But here's the thing, I wanted to use the Junk Monkey paint on here, which is what I'm going to do, but I changed my mind at the last minute about the colors that I'm going to use, and I don't have all the colors. And I almost made a mistake. I brought home this DIY Old 57. You can see a little bit of the teal color that it is, because that's the color that I was wanting, and I don't have it with me in Junk Monkey. So I was going to use the DIY. But the thing about the DIY is it has to have a top coat before you can put on the next layer, or it's going to reactivate the paint and lift off some of what you have there. So when I was unpacking bags this morning, I found the samples of the wall paint, that peacock plume from Sherwin-Williams that I had painted that bedroom wall with. And I'm like, oh, that'll be a good base coat. I know better. I know better than to use this latex paint. But I considered that because I didn't want to have to paint, top coat, and then paint again. I was being lazy. And then I came in here to think about the prep work, and hopefully y'all can see this. It's it's coming off. This is where the people before me painted this, and this right here was painted with, you know, wall paint, not furniture paint, and it's scraping off. So now I'm reminded of what happens when you use this paint, and I'm going to have to go and sand all of this down as a portion of my prep work before I can put on my next coat, which is going to be the DIY like I anticipated. Let me show you that. I really wanted to use the new Junk Monkey purple that I got, Raising the Bar it's called, but because I'm going to use some patina on here, I think that would then be too many colors. And because the patina I'm using is copper patina, which is going to be kind of a teal color, I believe that using the teal as the base coat is going to be smart. So I have that in here. Let me go ahead and show you the colors that I'm going to use. That's the purple that I'm now not going to use. This is Crazy Eyes, which is kind of a bright, almost matches the shirt I have on, a bright orangey, melony, peachy kind of a color. I mean, this thing's going to be loud and proud. It looks more orange. There you go. It's sort of a corally orange, but very, very bright and bold. That's going to be one of our main colors, as is Berry Dance. So the first thing I'm going to do is probably sand on these areas. I'm going to go all around the whole piece, looking for any area where it may be going to chip or anything like that, and I'm going to sand that smooth. And if I have to sand every bit of that off, then that's what I'm going to do, because if I don't, my paint's going to chip off later on, and it's going to show that I didn't do my prep work. So I'm going to do my prep work. Oh goodness, this is so pretty. I'm just going to hold the lid up there. This is called Berry Dance, which is like a sort of a Laffy Taffy magenta, if you ask me, if y'all are old enough to remember Laffy Taffy. Gosh, I love that stuff. So that's going to be the other color we're going to use. And what I know I brought home with me that I can't find in here this morning is by Dixie Belle, has a metallic, they have a line of metallics, but the one that I'm going to use is metallic copper. And I'm going to do the legs, like from here down, in the copper. And somewhere along in here, the edge of the topping coming down, I'll decide that as, that's my not planned part. I have a little bit of a vision in my mind, but it will come down with this, which is their copper patina. And I don't know if y'all remember, but I did some pumpkins in this, some dollar store pumpkins in this back in the fall. And here you can get a green or a blue. I chose the blue spray. This actually has pieces of copper in it that you paint on. Then you paint a second coat on. While that's still wet, you spray on the patina. I don't know if you can see this tiny, tiny bit of picture right here. That's sort of what a patina looks like. That's going to be on here, and I believe that using the blue color and the copper will blend in with that teal enough to bring it down over those bold colors enough to calm them down to where they're not shocking, yet let it be a beautiful statement piece. And then with the copper legs, that'll tie it all back in together. And I haven't decided at this point. This is what the doors look like. It definitely needs repairing, because I didn't pull this door off just for this benefit. But I had considered, and still may, I don't know yet, putting like a raised stencil on here, like we did on that last piece where we used the Junk Monkey milk paint, and we used the raised stencil to cover parts of where the veneer was chipping off. Well, I mean, this has a decorative front, and I can leave this alone, and I've got to figure out what in the world I'll do, whether I need to fill in all these crevices first, if I'm going to put a big decorative piece on here, or whether to go with, like we did for the desk that was the February class, and make a big sort of applique out of like an IOD mold to go on here. Then you still got to worry about making it look good with these background crevices, because I believe if I was to try to fill in all of these, hi Audrey, I believe if I was to try to fill in all of these crevices with like a Bondo or a mud or something like that, that it's going to be a disastrous amount of sanding and things like that. And it's not important enough to me to spend, you know, probably 5 hours on each of these doors just to get that look. But it is worth it looking beautiful to me. So that's something that is not pre-planned. That'll be decided as I go. At this point right now, I'm going to paint them in the scheme that I'm with the paints that I've shown y'all. All this hardware is coming off. It's not bad hardware, but it has nothing to do with, you know, looking like an old piece or a crazy piece. So I'll pull this off. I have a little container here where I chunk old and new hardware. I have a drawer full of this at work and a couple of these containers here at home. So this hardware can be used on another piece later, but it's not going to be used on this piece. I don't believe it goes with it at all, or it definitely not with my new idea. And I will probably, whatever, unless I find something perfect at Hobby Lobby, I'm going to look and see if they have the hardware sale this week. If they do, I might see if y'all want me to go live in Hobby Lobby while I'm looking at the knobs and help me pick them out. But either way, if I find something that I like the shape of, but it's not the right color, since this is going to have the patinaed copper and the shiny copper on it, it definitely needs to be copper hardware. So a lot of times at this point, the style now is to paint the hardware, and we would do that if this was shaped in a fashion that would look good. So that's sort of trying to think if there's anything else. And I have my brushes in here. I have, because I tote them back and forth. I've got a bag full of like my Dixie Belle brushes and my Paint Pixie brushes. And also, as an FYI, I couldn't sleep last night, and I put I have the DIY paint, Dixie Belle paint, and the Paint Pixie brushes on my Etsy page now. So if any of y'all are interested, just let me know and I'll put that link under there and you can go and look at them. But anyway, so now the plan is I'm going to sand and look for any area. Like right here is some loose paint. Take all of this hardware off, including these hinges, which we'll probably reuse, but they need to be off for right now so that I can get a good coat of paint on there. I'm still terribly disturbed that they painted the inside of these, because that means I have to paint the inside of these too. So that's extra work, but I'm going to do it. And so I'm going to sand it, clean it with this TSP, scrub it down, and then wipe that off with a clean rag, let it dry, and start with the painting process, which is going to start for me today with the DIY Old 57, and then and I also have a white here. This is just one that I had open from Dixie Belle drop cloth, and that's in case I decide to do any highlighting later on with some of these colors. I can just mix a little bit of that color in with the white and do highlighting in some areas if I decide to. So I did want to have that out here and ready as well. I have the big top out here, which is by DIY. Once I put all that DIY teal all over it, I'm going to have to top coat it. So I'm just going to top coat it with the big top. And then I'll come on with all of my other colors. And then at the very end, I'm going to come back with the Dixie Belle Gator Hide, because that's the toughest of the top coats that I have, and at least do this top portion with it. I'll probably do all the rest of it with Banana Peel by Junk Monkey, because it's a matte color, and I want it to sort of be subdued, because if using those bright colors, it's going to have to be subdued somewhere to not look comical. So I'll use the Junk Monkey Banana Peel matte finish for that. But the gator hide on top, and that's another trick too, if you're using the gator hide on top to get that tough, you know, gator hide finish, you can still go back over that with a matte top coat later to mattify the look so you don't have anything shiny. But I don't know with what I have in mind whether the, and Gator Hide's more of a satin, whether that'll still look good, and that'll be a decision that has to be made right at the very end. And I have my drop cloth on the floor. If you don't see that, I don't want to ruin my floor. The piece is already on rollers. So I just wanted to come in for a minute and just say, yes, I do believe you need to do prep work even with chalky style paint in a lot of instances, and this is because of this chipping. And because of the chipping, I know that they used a latex paint under here, so I for sure know that I need to prep it. And once I start sanding, I'm going to see sort of how much damage there is, and if I need to prime, I'll prime it. I'll prime the piece too. I don't think so. I don't think it's loose a lot of places. It's not shiny. It's not scratching off in the Texas color here, whatever, the burnt orange color. None of that is happening, so I don't think that I'm going to need to use primer on it, but I have a gallon of primer sitting to the side in case I do need to do it. You just don't want to put, probably 20 hours of your time into a project like this and wanting to be proud of yourself and, your artistic abilities and all that, and trying all these cool finishes and all that, and then have it chip off later on and you have to start over. That would just be heartbreaking. So remember, always clean it. Look and see if there's areas that need to be sanded. If there are, sand them, then clean it again, and then, make a decision as if there's any slick surfaces or anything like that would cause you to need primer. Go ahead and prime. What I'll probably do is put a brush stroke or two of this old 57 on here, and if it looks like this burnt orange color is going to be hard to cover, I will tint my primer a little bit by adding a little bit of this old 57 to it and put a coat of that all over. But because this is if you've seen like Rust-Oleum primer or whenever they prime cars and stuff like that, this is a main primer color for when you're using dark colors, is this sort of a rust looking color. So that's actually a good thing, because since these paint colors are so bright, and I'm wanting that brightness, but I'm wanting to tone it down at the same time, I believe having this color toner underneath it is going to be a good idea. And it's, similar enough to the copper that it's going to work out on the legs and make that go a lot faster too. So I just wanted to come in and sort of let you know how my process goes. I'm going to film every bit of, the work that I do on this, and that'll be our April class. I'm excited about doing it, and we'll just decide, like I said, on the doors and these things. These are the parts that I'll do, plan as I go, or paint, sort of just hop up and say, okay, I know what I'm going to do now. I'm going to put an applique on there. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a raised stencil, or hey, this is looking really good, and maybe some of that patina can run down through some of these crevices, or patina in another way down over these doors that gives them everything that they need for them to stand out as an important part of this buffet. So I appreciate y'all joining me. If you have any questions, just let me know, and I'm going to start doing all this work. Thanks for joining me. Bye.